Foreclosure topic. Everybody's favorite. We love the foreclosure topics, don't we? All right. There's this incredibly exciting part of the paperwork process called the Sellers Addendum.
Yes.
And in the foreclosure end of it, what is the purpose of that document, and does the buyer have to sign that document?
If the buyer wants the property, the buyer does have to sign the document in whole and cannot strike any of the items in the document. It's a pretty hefty document. It's called the Sellers Addendum, basically.
Addendum means add-on, though, doesn't it?
It's add-on, but it's pretty much a repetitive disclosure that you would find in the RPA, which is the purchase agreement.
Right.
It tells the buyer their right to inspection. It tells the buyers, the right to their due diligence and so on and so forth. But majority of the addendum is to let the buyer know that this is a foreclosed property. The property was taken into possession without the seller ever living in the property. So it's really page after page after page of release of liability from the seller side.
It's not my fault. It's not my fault.
It's not my fault. I didn't live in the property. I don't know what's behind the walls.
Not my job.
I don't know what's under the house. I don't know what's in the attic. So on and so forth.
Is this different on a foreclosure /REO/bank owned than it is in a traditional equity sale?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, because in a traditional equity sale, the seller is going to give the basic standard water heater strap disclosures and lead-based paint disclosures and things like that. But with the bank addendum, they have pretty much it's a 19-page. Item after item after item. Basically, I don't know. Do you still want the property, basically? And some people do get intimidated by it, okay?
How many pages?
About 19 pages.
19 pages of I didn't do it, it's not my fault?
Including a couple of pages of mold disclosure saying it may have mold, and lead disclosure, it may have lead. And actually, and one very beneficial disclosure for the buyer too. It's a California selection addendum, and it gives the buyer the choice to choose actually the title and escrow or let the seller do it. Honestly,
wait a minute, but that's okay. We're going to stray for just a second,
yeah.
But the law says that the buyer gets to choose anyway.
It doesn't usually work that way.
It doesn't work that way. I know nobody knows it, but hey, that's why we're here. We're educating the consumer.
But they are disclosed of that fact. But honestly, if I had a buyer, I would let the bank use their title and escrow, because if anything were to go wrong, and it often does with title,
yeah.
And the buyer,
offense, Mr. Kelly.
Well, and the buyer chose the title and escrow, then guess who's default? The buyer is the one default. The buyer is the one who's going to be held to paying the per diem and so forth, and they're the ones that's going to cause the delay, and they're the ones who could lose their deposit, and they really put themselves in a pretty bad predicament there.
So even though the buyer does have that ability to choose, it would behoove them. I saw that on 3.5 Men ranking. It's really cool. It would behoove them to let the seller, in the case of a foreclosure, that being the bank, do it with their people because it's smoother for the transaction.
Yeah. And here's a little tip for the agents out there, of course, who sell REOs. What I usually do is when I list a property, I actually put a PDF attachment of the seller's addendum, a draft of it, as an example, so that the selling agents or the buyer's agents,
right.
Easier understood, can give their buyer a draft copy of this addendum in the event that the buyer is selected as the chosen buyer of choice.
The chosen one.
They have the addendum ahead of time. It's no shock to them. They've read it thoroughly.
They haven't read it. It's 19 pages, Frank.
Well, there's a lot of reading that goes on here.
They didn't read it. Their real estate agent said, well, here's what it says in here. It says blah, 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 sign it.
Yeah.
And then 99% of them are just signing the thing. Is that a good idea, by the way? Is there some stuff in there they really should read?
Well, they should read everything, but it's...
Oh, come on. That's like when you sign up for Facebook and you have to read the terms of service, and it's 400 pages.
It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing at all. It's not a bad thing at all. If anything, I think it raises awareness that it's really buyer beware, and that if you're purchasing a property, you're buying it as is. It's an as is condition, and that's all they're really saying. If you buy, when you said on a traditional or on an equity sale, the seller is required by law to disclose everything that they know about the property, everything they know about the neighborhood, noise.
A TDS is what it's called, basically.
Yeah.
Transfer disclosure statement, which gets a little more thorough than the seller's addendum.
Yeah, I call it a totally deceptive statement.
Hey.
Well, it's also it's the basis for whether somebody knew something or didn't know something. But this bank, the bank addendum, it's actually kind of a good thing, I think, because it really is saying, listen, we don't know. We just ended up with this thing. You can have it, but I don't know anything about it. I'm just passing it along.
It really protects all parties, basically.
And the bottom line is, you got to sign it.
You
cannot put any lines through it. You cannot change anything.
You can't.
But you don't need to.
Anything.
You don't need to. It's buyer beware. If you're buying a foreclosure, understand that it's your responsibility to do all the inspections, do your homework, make sure you really want that property. Cheapest is not always best.
Yeah. So buyers out there, if you are fortunate to be the buyer of choice and you do receive this document back as part of the documents that you have to execute to move forward, don't be intimidated. Don't be afraid of it. It's all part of the natural process of buying a foreclosure.
Read it, understand it, and don't be afraid to hire a few different types of inspectors to come in and make sure the home's in good shape. Yeah.
Nice. Once again, protecting the consumer through education and empowerment. The credo here of keeping it real estate on the beach. There's some, this and many other topics are going to be covered in that workshop we're going to do each month, the last Wednesday of every month. And this month, it happens to fall on leap year, which is February 29th. You can get more information at helplongbeach.com. But basically, it's a workshop that the four of us, plus some of our go-to team members like Kevin Kelly from Chicago Title and Kevin Tain from Identity Staging, people like that are going to be at the workshop to help answer questions for anyone. It's free. Get a few tacos or some pizza beforehand. And again, that's the last Wednesday of every month. And you can find out more and register at helplongbeach.com.